All right.
And at the right time, I just share screen to show my
Yes.
presentation. Great.
Yeah, perfect. See, we have people joining. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. And does someone mind just like raising their hand virtually to let me know that you can actually hear me? Perfect. Thanks so much. I always appreciate. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Clara. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes to get in. If you haven't had a chance between your last meeting and this one to grab a glass of water, you have a few moments now to do that. And we'll get started in just a minute. Perfect. All right. As people continue to come in, I'm just going to do my spiel. Hello, welcome. My name is Casey Thomas. I am the content and public relations specialist here at AudienceView, and I have the pleasure of facilitating our industry expert webinar series, which has been a really fun way for me to learn more about the industry and the people who work within it. And I hope that this has been really nice. If you've been at one of our previous webinars, thanks for coming back and joining us. If this is your first one, we have a handful of on-demand webinars at the site and continuing to schedule more of these. So we always welcome feedback in terms of other topics you'd like us to cover, other speakers that you might like to hear from. This is a very casual and fun way for people to learn more, basically. Just a reminder, this is being recorded. So, but none of our participants are on camera. And as always, please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A as they occur to you, and we'll get to everyone. And the chat is also available if you would like to ask your question that way. All right, without further ado, I am thrilled to introduce today's speaker. Victoria Cairl has over 20 years of industry experience in ticketing and live events. She has worked in advertising, marketing, sales, tourism experience. She's worked at Disney Theatrical, the Met Museum, Lincoln Center, just to name a few of her areas of expertise, and also runs Table 7 strategy. So without further ado, Vic, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today. So I prepared a little bit of a presentation, and let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I've, as you mentioned, I've worked in the industry for years, and there are different segments of what we all do. There are people that are, I would say, pricing and ticketing analysts, and I don't put myself necessarily in that category, but what I do know is in my years of doing marketing and sales strategy, there are lots of things I've learned about selling tickets, and that's what I hope to share with you all today. And it's really a lot about consumer behavior. So I'm hoping that this will be helpful for everybody on the call. We spoke about it earlier. It's only an 8-slide presentation. So if there are people who do want to ask questions throughout, we are going to facilitate those questions for you. So are we ready to, I'm just going to dive right in and share my screen. Okay. Great.
Sorry, I just realized I was talking on mute. Really quick, I'm just getting a little bit of background noise. I was checking to make sure all the participants are muted, but there might be like a chat bubble coming through on your end that we're getting.
Oh, okay. That is entirely true. And I don't know how to mute that. So let's hope that my team who are on here
That's
will.
all right. Just want to make sure. All right, I'm muting myself again. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so let's dive in. So I imagine that the majority of you are in the ticket selling business or in the marketing business. So what I'm going to go over are the 6 biggest lessons I've learned in terms of selling tickets. And again, as I said, hopefully some of these are helpful to you or they'll create some conversation, but let's start. So we're going to talk mainly about theater. I'm just out of curiosity, there are people that are using AudienceView for things beyond theater, correct?
Yes, correct.
Great. Well, for the purpose of this, We're going to start with know your target audience must be theater goers plus. So it's been a year, y'all. Post-pandemic, trying to get both commercial theater and nonprofit theater back on its feet has been a problematic time. And I think it's because if you were sitting in your living room and you're watching Netflix, suddenly I'm going to ask you to actually go to an actual theater and sit in a seat and pay for a ticket and enjoy a live experience. And what we're finding across the board is that you can't just target a theater goer anymore. I have a play that I want to put on Broadway. I'm just going to send an email to theater goers. Doesn't work. The shows that are working are shows where you can be a theater goer plus something else. So what that means, and you can see it by the success of Broadway shows right now, is that you can do a Doll's House, but maybe you need Jessica Chastain. So you want to have an interest in a star or a musician or a specific topic or a specific art form. So for example, if your mom is coming to town and she wants to see a show, she just wants to see a Broadway show. She may not care which one it is, but you do know that she loves Neil Diamond. So you're going to be buying 2 tickets to see A Beautiful Noise. And I think the other thing that could be true is there's a new show that just announced its Broadway run called Limpika. And Limpika is actually a show that I saw in development. I'm completely madly in love with. But the catch to Limpika is it is actually about an artist. So I can see them advertising not only to theater goers, but also to theater goers plus those who may have an interest in the visual arts, specifically modern art. So as you're starting to think about, okay, these are the plays in my season at a regional theater that I need to promote, can you look through every single show and say, okay, it's theater plus what else? Is there another interest here? Is there some other audience that might be excited to come and see a show? Also, and this is the most important thing, know what it's like to buy a ticket. So often, many people who work in the industry, specifically around ticketing, maybe you get your tickets for free, maybe you get comps, maybe you get invited by friends. But if you're working in the ticketing industry and it's your job to speak to consumers, like pretend to be a consumer and actually go online and pick up the phone and call the call center and understand what it is like, the process of actually purchasing. And I will say, quick plug for AudienceView, you guys have a wonderful customer interface. That is not true for every ticketing system across the board. Often, when you are going through the process of buying, you may yourself find like, oh, this is confusing, or I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do next. Or once with a ticketing client, I clocked it, took 9 steps from you clicking buy a ticket till you were actually able to purchase one. So this is just something that, let's say you are in a middle management position or you're working at the box office and you understand all the intricacies. Make sure that everyone in your marketing department, make sure that your artistic director has had to go through and physically understand what it's like, because you need as much support to help you to streamline your ticketing system and to streamline that experience of a person buying a ticket every day. Because you can have the best ad campaign in the world, but if somebody gets to your site and they're unable to figure out how to buy, or it's a miserable experience, people will leave and you will have a million abandoned carts. So good so far. Next, let's talk about good deals. So we are past the point in history where you have to discount shows. People are talking about, yes, oh, the show's not selling, I'm going to put up a discount. It's really not about the deal in terms of I got X percentage off, but the deal is I'm looking at a seating map, I'm clicking to buy, and that number that I'm paying for that ticket feels fair. So let's talk about the Taylor Swift economy. Do we have any Swifties in our presence? I'm a Swiftie.
And I couldn't get a ticket.
So what's so interesting to me about Taylor Swift, everyone I know who bought a ticket, no one complained. No one said, oh, sure, it was expensive. But whatever they clicked on, that number they paid, the amount that they were willing to spend to be in that stadium with Tay-Tay, it was worth every penny. And we're going to talk about a Broadway show in a couple minutes, but like the deal ultimately is, if what I'm paying, does it feel correct? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the most expensive tickets. So maybe you're looking at a huge price, like a huge show, like Cabaret, for example, at the Kit Kat Club, as it's being called, will be opening on Broadway in the spring. Those tickets are very expensive, but it's an experiential show where you're literally inside the Kit Kat Club. I've seen it in London. It was absolutely amazing. I would pay a certain dollar amount because I am feeling that it's not just a show I'm seeing, it's a full-on experience that I'm having. And it's a big show and it's expensive, and I understand that I will pay and I will get my money's worth. Whereas there are other shows right now that maybe I don't know. Maybe they're brand new. So one of the shows that we're working on here at Table 7, which you should all check out, is How to Dance in Ohio. It's a very exciting new musical. It's coming to Broadway. It opens for previews on November 15th. And what we're finding is people are like, oh, that looks good. Oh, I'm curious. But the messages that are working are things like great seats from $99. So you really have to think about the fact that, okay, this is a show that I don't know yet. None of my friends have seen it. I'm curious about it. It is on Broadway, so I know it's of a higher quality. Am I willing to pay $99 for a decent seat? Sure. So it may not be Taylor Swift quite yet, but if you look at the people who bought early tickets to something like Dear Evan Hansen or Wicked, they're very proud of the fact that they got a $99 seat snagged somewhere in the beginning of those runs, because you're not necessarily going to get that opportunity again. So as you're thinking about selling, you don't immediately have to go to the discount bargain bin. Really think about what is the price that the average person would be willing to pay to try something new, or what is the price that somebody would pay to do something completely experiential and huge and big, like Cabaret, like we spoke about. So making sure that's clear. So far, just quick to review, you have to target theater goers plus, you have to know what it's like to buy a ticket, and you have to really understand what that price of that ticket is. Is that a good deal? So good so far? Okay, next step. Know and understand your audience where they are. I love to see these women in this photo. That's me on the far left. These are my best girlfriends. I have known them since I was in my early 20s. We all worked together at Sereno Coin, an ad agency here in New York that sells Broadway. Here's the problem. We all are married. We all have lives. We all live outside the city now. I don't think a single one of us is in New York. And making a plan to come to the theater has never been more complicated in terms of, okay, I've got a dog, I've got a kid, I've got a sick parent I have to take care of. Like, everybody has so much going on. So it used to be, if you look at the average of a Broadway theater goer, it's the 45-year-old woman. So let's talk about understanding the middle-aged suburban woman who likes theater, of which I happen to be. I think many of us you're running these huge ad campaigns, but are you actually thinking about how you're reaching somebody? And this is what I say, people spend a ton on digital, and digital does work. But here's what we're noticing across the board is working in digital. So one is a good video clip. We're all on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, I'm finally on TikTok. I don't post anything, but I watch a million of them. And the way I discovered TikTok is that TikToks were being repurposed on my Instagram. So I was watching TikToks on Instagram, which felt silly, but the idea of like a cute video, my entire family text chain is us sending each other videos and video clips of things that we've seen online that we thought were cool. Also very similar to my text chain with these women. It's like, oh, I saw this person performing, or did you see the picture of Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel in the bathtub? Best picture ever, pink bathtub, green bathtub, good stuff. We're all sharing that across mediums, right? We're sharing content. But also, if there's a show that I'm curious about, it may be that there's a good press quote. I know quotes are kind of silly, but if I see, and we're about to talk about it when we get to my next page, but there could be a quote that I believe from Merrily We Roll Along that was like the essential Broadway film, the Broadway show. Okay, I'm going to listen. When Ben Brantley tells me it's the essential Broadway show, maybe I should check that out. And then finally, the other thing that we found worked is press. your press teams are the most precious things, because if you can have somebody who has a press appearance or an interview, or I saw the other night that there was Alex Newell was singing a song from Shucked on Stephen Colbert, all about it. I could watch that all day, right? And I want to share that with friends, and I'm going to watch it. And it makes me think, oh, I've already seen Shucked, but oh, what a performance Alex gives. I probably want to go back and see it again. And that's just because those pieces of content seem to be coming through. That said, you need to hit me with ads beyond my screen to motivate me to go somewhere where there is no screen. So essentially, you're saying you are attached to your phone. I'm going to hit you with advertisements. I'm going to get all up in your social business. But oh, now you're going to put the phone away and you're going to have to function. And I think the best way to describe what gets me to buy is I probably got hit with a clip. I probably watched something on TV, but maybe it's when the direct mail hits my home. Maybe because I'm a commuter, it's when I'm standing there, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm waiting for the train, and I'm looking at a poster, and I'm like, oh gosh, MJ, really want to take the kids to MJ, right? But I think that when we put together ad plans, when we start to think about how to reach people, we can't solely rely on this. It's not enough. There has to be one other piece of information that's going to get me to cross the line. And it could be because I'm an older audience member, but at the same time, I think that's key. So I'm just going to pause. Are there any questions, or are we okay so far?
I actually have a question while we're on this
Yeah.
topic. So, what do you think of this latest trend when we're obviously, when I go to the theater, if people do not silence and turn off those phones, it drives me crazy. But I've noticed that lately, productions, I also live in New York, so I've gone to a lot of Broadway musicals in the last several years. And there's this trend lately of theaters specifically telling audiences when they can bring out their phones, when it's okay to record and take photos. And a lot of shows now have this like encore at the end, or I was just at
Megamix.
Spamalot. Yeah, Six is a great example. So what do you think of that difference in kind of, it feels like they're bridging the gap between like, no, 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 none of this, it's all illegal, versus, all right, we're going to give you enough so that you can, the word of mouth marketing. What do you think about that? Do you feel like it's working?
I think it's genius. I have to say, before I saw Six, I think I saw the end of Six 60 times.
Yeah.
And it got me excited. It made me want to go. It made me want to have the fun that my friends were having. That said, I think that I had 3 children, and for their birthdays, I take them to see a show. And the thing that they remember and they hold on to most is their playbill.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, get people to shoot that. And oh my God, how many playbill selfies have we all seen? Regardless if it's an actual playbill, but holding that up on
Yeah.
camera to take it. I think that it's something that everybody has that moment, and they have a physical thing. So now they have a digital memory and they
Mm-hmm.
have a physical memory. Because the other thing I think is really interesting about getting audiences to capture it is hopefully some of these shows run for a long time. So I took a picture of me seeing Anne Juliet with my mom, I don't know, 3 years ago in London, and it just came up again. And I thought, oh, wow, I want to go back and see Anne Juliet again on Broadway.
Yeah.
So not only can a digital memory last for just that second and help spread word of mouth, it can act as a reminder, almost like a physical playbill, of a time or place or a thing that you want to revisit.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that answers your
Definitely.
question. I'm all about it.
Yeah, I love it. How fun did you go to, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, the one with all the Britney Spears music, and we had all the fun like frames on the way in.
Oh yeah, yeah. One
What was that?
Maybe one more time. Why am I
Yes.
blanking? Yes.
Thank you.
Once upon a one more time.
Yes, that was it.
I did, and it's so funny because I went with one of my friends who's a little bit older, and she knew none of Britney's songs, and I was astounded, or she was astounded at me, how many I knew, how I could sing every lyric to every song, and even
Hmm.
look at the "Hit Me Baby One More Time" choreography and say, oh, that's very similar to the video, you know?
Yeah.
There's certain things that are just ingrained. And as a moment, I think what I really loved about seeing the Britney Spears musical was that I have such fond memories of all those songs. So
Hmm.
even though they're coming back under the auspice of it's a larger story, it made me happy.
Yeah,
And I think that the world is a little crazy right now. So being able to go into a theater and escape and go to a happy place or go to a thoughtful place. I also just saw The Pianist in New Jersey at George Street.
mm,
That was not a happy experience, but it was an experience and it was thought provoking. And with everything in the world happening, it was worth seeing. So I mean, with everything that we do, it's really a matter of, how much are you getting out of this experience and how can you truly be in it when it's happening.
definitely.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about urgency. How many times have you been in a meeting or been talking to people about like, how do we sell this? It's like, oh my God, we got to give urgency to the consumer. I'm going to tell you what urgency is to the consumer right now. We talked about Merrily We Roll Along, right? This is a show that has all the elements of urgency, and it's probably why the show is doing so well. So we're going to talk through that. One, the show is brand new, and I want to get the best seats to see it first. So Merrily took an interesting journey. It's just because we're going to hit a couple of these points. It is basically a failed Sondheim musical back in the day that they brought back with a new look, a new take, a new director with three fabulous stars, one of whom is a film star, the other well-known Broadway stars. And they did it off Broadway in a tiny theater, and it sold out and no one could get a ticket. And when they announced it was coming to Broadway, they said, so we've got stars, they're here for a limited time. It was a big hit. Get your tickets now, you're going to miss. So there's immediately an urgency around that the show's brand new and I want to see it first and I got to get the best seats because I know it sold out at the last place. So I better buy something now. The star I wanted to see is joining the show or leaving the show. I know these three, they're only going to be in the show for a short amount of time. It's like Sweeney Todd right now, controversial take, but you have Sweeney Todd right now. You've got Josh Groban leaving. You've got Aaron Tveit coming in. Both makes me want to go see Josh Groban one last time. And then out of pure curiosity for his hotness, but also, can he sing the baritone? I'm going to go see Aaron Tveit, right? So it's brilliant in the way that they're utilizing star casting as both, hey, you might want to catch this one last time, and hey, you're going to see someone new that probably is going to appeal to a slightly different audience than Josh did, right? But really, it's the Anna Lee Ashford versus Sutton Foster of it all. Two very different personalities, but also want to see both those women less skeptical. But I'm in. There's a deal to see the show, but only for a limited time. The team at Table 7 has taught me anything. It is do a flash sale. Sounds silly. These teams, they're still delivering. They're still working. And what the game has been is we're going to give you a deal, but it's for a limited time and you have to take advantage of it. And so that's what people have been doing. And that seems to be working. People really seem to say, oh, I've kind of wanted to go. Oh, but if I want to go now, I better buy at this moment. We work for La Mirada Theater out in La Mirada, California. And we were working on Your Feet. And we had this idea where, and I say we because it's always collectively, everybody sort of works on it together. But I believe our ticketing consultant was like, what if you did something for Gloria's birthday? And so we did a certain price, which was Gloria's age, which we won't get into, but it was like for a limited time. Happy birthday, Gloria. You can get tickets for X amount of money, but it's only for this weekend. And we also did it a month out. And we knew specifically what performances needed a bounce. So rather than it being saying to consumers, oh, you have to wait till the last minute, it's like, we're going to give you a deal a month out, but it's only going to be for a couple performances. And it's going to be for a limited time. And so you got to act fast. Now, the other thing this does is it hooks consumers. It gets them to actually go to the website or go to look at the ticketing. And then the hope is that once they're there, they're like, oh, but I wanted to see it on Friday night. And this deal is only for Thursday. But I kind of already want to go. So let me see what's available for the date that I can go, that I want to go. And I think that's incredibly helpful too. And then we have a couple more things about urgency. There's a cool event or moment happening that I want to be part of. Here Lies Love is doing these DJ nights where like Fatboy Slim is going to show up and DJ after the show. You want to go? that's the date he's coming. Come on back, you know. There are a lot of people that did things around Halloween. And I think people want to be a part of that first preview of Spamalot, where you get the little Burger King hats. Like there's maybe they are not Burger King hats, but everybody wore a crown. It's very cool.
I thought
But
that they were Burger King hats at first,
yeah,
but
who
yes,
knows?
they
Maybe
are.
Burger King and now a sponsor. It's great exposure for Burger King. Ariana Grande was kind of half wearing her Burger King. It was fabulous. But I think that it was an event. It was the first preview, or it's an event because we have a certain thing happening on this night. If you don't come, you're going to miss out on it. This show is ending its run. I've been in a meeting where I've had to say to a producer, the only way for you to sell more tickets is for you to say it's ending in 2 weeks. And it works. Because people maybe don't have like, oh, I'll go and see it. Oh, it's just going to run forever. I don't care. Oh, no, it's closing. Oh, I better go. I very rarely do I see a show as sad as this is that announces it's closing where the sales go down. They usually have a little bit of an uptick right at the end. And then finally, I'm afraid if I don't buy now that I'll never get a good seat. When a certain show goes up, like Cabaret did, you know that there are a limited number of these fancy tables or these other things that are people want to get them and they want to get them first. And a lot of times, a big motivator for me to sign up for your email newsletter or follow you on social is that I have a chance to buy before everybody else. I think this really works a lot with star vehicles, but also Encores, which happens at City Center, which you should all check out. It's amazing. Encores only runs for 2 weeks. And so there are only so many seats in that theater. So if I want to get up close and personal to watch Sutton in Once Upon a Mattress before she goes to Sweeney Todd, what a transition. The girl's a pro. But it means that I would be able to get the best seat to see her, to enjoy that show. And I'm going to buy as soon as it goes on sale. This is also how places like the Public, like the new Alicia Keys musical, which you should all be keeping track on, what they did is Hell's Kitchen. They said, if you want tickets to this, you have to become a member of the Public Theater. If you don't, good luck to you. But it did incentivize a lot of people to join, much like Hamilton worked to say, Hamilton's a part of our next season. If you want to get guaranteed tickets, you better become a subscriber to X theater. And I think that was a helpful thing. I see any questions? I see something in the chat.
Kate Noonan had her hand up, but I'm not sure. I don't see anything in the Q&A. So just a reminder, Kate, if you can hear this, please drop your question in to the Q&A or anyone else that has one right now. While we're on this urgency topic, Vic, I'm curious if I'm a person running a venue in a different market and okay, so maybe, I don't have the star power or the as fast turnover as some of the Broadway theaters have. What are, other than announcing an early closing, what are some other ways that you think that different markets might be able to kind of copy good ideas from the New York market in terms of creating that urgency?
I think doing special events that are one night only. So we talked a little bit about On Your Feet. We noticed that the last 2 Saturday nights weren't great. So we offered a free dance lesson by some members of the cast post show.
Oh,
And
nice.
that was sort of a last minute idea, but it was something that we were trying. Wizard of Oz at Jiva, one of our other clients, they decided that they were going to do a dress up night for Wizard of Oz. People
Fun.
just really enjoyed having something to do. But one of Jiva's ideas, which I think is brilliant, is they do a thing called prologue and talkbacks. Everybody will talk about talkbacks, but I do live far away from New York City. So when I am leaving a show, I'm not necessarily going to stay for a talkback. And what this regional does is called a prologue, where once a week they have somebody from the creative team talk to you before the show. So this way, if you just get there a half an hour early, you can talk to the lighting designer about, oh, listen to all the things that we're doing in the show that you can check out. So you feel like an insider when you're watching it.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to the theater, many of them in the regionals, for a communal experience. So if you can give them a reason not just to go and see it, but come like do networking cocktails. I would love if somebody did a singles night, a speed dating night before a show. I think what we're working on for Beautiful, which we haven't talked deeply about yet, but inside scoop, everyone, if you're out in La Mirada, California, We're going to do a contest for local songwriters to entertain people pre-show. And we're also hoping to entertain others who might be following a songwriter who want to come out and see them and say, oh, Beautiful is actually a show about a female songwriter. I want to go check it out. So it's that cross-pollination. It's that theater goer plus thing that we're trying to do. So I guess the simplest answer is what I find in terms of urgency is also counting down. You only have this much time left to see said show, regardless. If it's a regional and your run is only so long, it sometimes motivates single ticket buyers to say, oh, I really did mean to see that. Oh, I heard that that had good reviews. I should go and check it out.
Thanks. And if we have time before we go to your next slide, we did have two questions come into the Q&A.
Yeah.
Clara asks, do you find tickets sell better when audiences can pick seats versus general admission?
Yes, always. And I think that the Today Tix of it all is a really good example of that. Today Tix in New York, they recently got API access, meaning that they're able to actually let audience members choose their seats. And it used to be that you would just say, I'm in the orchestra. And you would take a gamble that I'm paying $100-something for these tickets, and I hope they are good seats. I know they're in the orchestra, but as we all know, there are lots of seats in the orchestra that aren't so great. I think people really want to know where they're seated. The exception to the rule from a ticketer perspective is if you look at what City Center does with Fall for Dance, those tickets are all $15, $20. I think they're $20. And I think that people are motivated by price, and they don't give you the location until after you purchased. But for $20, you're like, I'll take the risk.
Yeah,
Anything over a $50 threshold, I think you really want to know where you're going to be seated.
definitely. And then we do have Kate's question here, which is, oh, she was raising her hand to say that she also loved Taylor Swift, but she does have a question. Vic, what are you most looking forward to seeing this season? And what is your favorite show of all time? And I will understand if you want to circle back to that one at the end of your presentation. Or we can answer it now.
I'll do it now. I'm going to milk it. But no, we'll go to that one because we're going to talk about the next and most important thing, which is that the sixth way I think for you to learn how to sell tickets is to remind people that they're going to make a memory. So I mentioned that all of my children, rather than give them toys, which I'm sure we did that anyway, as soon as they turned 5, we started taking them to a show. They can tell you, they can recite, oh, at 14, I went to see this. And at 15, I went to see this. And they remember those core memories of that experience. And so what we've worked on a lot of children's shows, one of which is Sesame Street, the musical, and we had a fall campaign, and it felt so far away in September to start to tell people to plan for the holidays. But we also noticed when we went on sale for December, like now, September through December, people immediately started jumping to December to buy, which I was like, oh, there's something here. So obviously you want people to buy your performances next week as opposed to 3 months from now. But once the best available started to fill up, the messaging of the holidays will be here before you know it, make your plans now, did have an effect, it did work. If you want to motivate somebody to say, okay, there's no real holiday or anything else coming up, but it's time to make time to see a show with friends, and you have the smiley picture, as I put, of like all my girlfriends, it's like, oh gosh, yeah, that came up in my memories. We've got to go and book a show. And that's definitely something that I'm thinking about constantly. And there's no night like a date night on Broadway. I mean, these are all motivating people, not by price, not by location, not by what show it is, but by the idea of maybe you should make a memory. Maybe you should make a plan. Maybe you should go out on a date. So when I interview people for jobs, I always ask them what their most favorite and least favorite shows are, because it tells you so much about a person. And most people can't pick one. You know, it's like choosing children. I do have a favorite child, but it changes day to day. But in terms of shows, 2 of my most favorite of all time, I really love Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And I also love 42nd Street. And these are very different shows. And the reason being that 42nd Street, they did a revival. It played in what I guess is now the Lyric Theater where Harry Potter is playing. And there was this moment where the curtain went up and you just saw all of these tap shoes, these pastel colored tap shoes, and I'm pretty sure I cried. Because the idea that like I was moving to New York from a small town, I grew up on a farm, and then I look out at this massive theater and all these dancers tapping, which I was never good at. I was never a skilled dancer. And just to see these shoes all across was just such a magic moment and such a huge show. And I love like the Judy Garland, Buzz Berkeley, like those great big musical productions. And seeing that, I think was a huge, huge thing that I will never forget and always think about. And then Hedwig is more intimate and fun and dark and rock and roll and filled with humor, a lot of dark humor. And it's been super special for me. But when I think about memories that are made, I've now been to see Guys and Dolls in London twice because I wanted two different experiences. The first I went, I sat on in the audience in house seats, fancy seats, and watched the show. And the second, I paid 49 pounds to actually stand through the entire production because it's an immersive production where you're literally standing on stage with a bunch of the actors and people moving you around or dressed up like cops, and they're telling you to go in this direction or that direction.
Oh, cool.
And so what I loved about that is it was new and it was exciting, but at the same time, I was experiencing a traditional show in a completely different way, almost like cabaret too. Keep talking about it, but I think the future of theater is with dashes of interaction, is with moments where you actually get to feel like you're a part of the show.
Yeah. I
So yeah.
mean, I was blown away by Here Lies Love. If someone had told me the plot ahead of time, I mean, I did know the plot going in, but like on the face of it, I'm thinking, what? We're going
Yeah.
to a disco to learn about Filipino history? What? Um, but it was great. We do have one more question from Kayla. She says, I work for a symphony, and it can be challenging to reach both our subscribers, which are often older and do not see ads, and our single ticket buyers, which are often younger and on busy schedules. Do you have any recommendations for catering to the urgency that both of these patron bases may have, since appeal will likely be different with the two groups?
Yeah, it's almost two completely separate campaigns. And I'll give you, so Jiva has an older subscriber base. And what they want to know is it's one of the most brilliant seasons. If you haven't gone to look at jivatheater.org, do it now, because the artistic director there, Elizabeth Williamson, is doing something so smart. And that is to say, I have to appeal to an older crowd and a younger crowd. So they did The Wizard of Oz with Glinda, played by a drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, Rosé. And you would go to see the show and you would have the subscribers who were like, okay, I'm here to see Wizard of Oz. And then you'd have a ton of young people they had never seen at the theater before who came to see Rosé, who came for this completely new take. And gotta be honest, some of the subscribers were fans, some weren't, but overall, everybody had a fun time. And some of the subscribers, when I spoke to them, said, I've never seen so many young people come out to see a show. And the
Yeah.
way that we reached them we were talking to the patrons, we were calling them, telling them what was playing, and we were sending them direct mail. When we were trying to go after the younger audience, not only were we doing paid media, we also had the cast members and Rosé and other people on TikTok, which we weren't paying for, but it was more a way to reach people to say, you want to come and see the show. And for a symphony, I know you can't put a drag queen in a symphony, but if you can, I'm there. But I think that if you're looking at it from a perspective of, here is our traditional campaign for the older audiences that we know are subscribers and want to come back, here is a wholly separate campaign, which may not be so much about spend, but smarts and content and engaging people. And if you could maybe show a beautiful couple getting ready to go to experience a symphony and selling it as this romantic, peaceful, calming evening out, that may be what motivates me to buy a ticket, because I've never been to the symphony, but I would like to have that experience. And the
Mhm.
other thing I thought was cool, and I can't remember who did it, but I think about it always, was to show the influence of a composer like Mozart on modern pop songs, and how there are different hooks in a classical piece, and you can also find it in a Billy Joel song. So I think if you can show the connection between the music that you're selling and how it relates back to what we're experiencing now, that's
Mhm.
another thing that I think could get people to say, why not? Let's buy some tickets, let's go. And you look at places like the Roundabout or the Met Opera, who have 30 under 30 programs. Those really do help. I think if you're younger, even if you have income, you might be willing more to experiment on an experience that you haven't had before if it is at a lower price. And also, you might care less about location
Mm.
because, okay, I paid 30 bucks and I'm in the nosebleeds, but gosh, this whole thing was fun. And I remember going to the Met Opera and being like, this is just incredible. This entire night that I'm here, just walking up the stairs, just every little bit of it. And thereby you can get a new bunch of folks in.
Yeah. I know that a lot of venues I've seen do specific performances for different sort of accessibility or, catering to neurodivergent audiences. Have you ever seen a venue do a specific night or performance for first timers?
You know, no, and they should. I massively, when I worked at Disney, I was a part of the first evening that they did for people on the spectrum.
Hmm.
And it was a matinee. And I just went back because in working on How to Dance in Ohio, I wanted to understand what the experience is like in terms of having people there and having people help and talk to you. And I have to say it was mind blowing that there were so many people there with their kids or even their adult children who had never been to the theater before, but were simply given the ability to say, hey, it's safe to go.
Hmm.
Um, I love this idea of a first timer night. I don't know how achievable it is, but I do know, and I love programs where you're encouraged to bring people who've never been to that theater before. And so I think if there are patrons, right? So like let's say that symphony got asked, hey, older folks, bring one young person to the next show
Yeah.
just so they can experience what you love for the very first time. And we'll give you this great offer to offer your grandkids, to offer, the intern at your law office, to in whatever that may be, trying to get, we talk about influencers a lot. My biggest influencer, there are a couple of friends that I know, and I know we have the same taste. And when they tell me to go see a show, I listen.
Hmm.
And those people don't have a million followers online, but they say, hey, I know you love live music. And there's this show playing about the recording of an album. And I think you'd really be into it. Forgive me because I'm forgetting the name of it, but I think it's at like MCC. And my friends were like, you absolutely have to go and see this. And I'm going to Google that and figure it out, and I'm going to go. So I think that the more we can encourage patrons, subscribers to tell other people to come and say, hey, I think you'll really enjoy this piece or this movement or this show or this star. That's the future. Is it's not so much what's on your phone. And I was
Hmm.
taught about social media. It's not who follows you, right? It's who follows the people that follow you. So
Mm.
in other words, I may post something and my friends all see, oh, Vic's in London, she's loving Guys and Dolls, no surprise, right? But if someone else shares that onto their feed and says, hey, I really want to go see Guys and Dolls next time I'm in London, then all of their friends see that.
Yeah.
And it becomes an ad on top of an ad on top of an ad. So I think that's just something worth checking out.
Yeah. Incredibly powerful. Word of mouth.
Yeah, always.
All right. While people might be thinking of other questions, I did write down another one when we were talking about pricing because just before a few weeks ago, we had a session with Sean Kelly about dynamic pricing. And I'm curious when you brought up, those people that got to see, say, Hamilton or Into the Woods before it really blew up. Do you see venues that specifically reward like early bird special type of things going after those tickets before someone else, before it becomes this big phenomenon? Or is it just happenstance that those tickets are a little less expensive?
I think that the majority of shows in a very traditional way, and even regionals do this, is during previews, seats are less expensive because you're trying to get people's buy-in, unless you have something like Hamilton, and then it's just a matter of access to seats, right?
Hmm.
And I also noticed that there are a lot of incentives given if you subscribe, like we talked about Alicia Keys, you get first dibs at seeing this Alicia Keys show. In terms of dynamic pricing, I think we talked about it. I'm more willing to take a risk on something if the price point is not that low. But really, I think what's going to motivate me to see something, it's weird, not so much about price.
Yeah.
It's really, what am I hearing and how badly do I want to see it? And then we talked about value. Okay, it's Taylor Swift. I'm going to be, so far away from her, but I just want to be in that space. So I don't care what I
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah.
Right. I know I'm in the the Ticketmaster queue. It's a whole other thing. But like once I get up and I'm actually able to purchase, I am holding a credit card and I'll put whatever amount of money on that credit card to just be there and be in that moment.
Yeah.
So I think, pricing and dynamic pricing is important, but you also have to realize that people think it's so simple. They're like, oh, well, this show's going to be a big hit. But I was saying to a producer friend of mine today, I'm like, theater is alchemy. Nobody knew Hamilton was going to be Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the people that were lucky enough. And I think mainly were subscribers at the public who said, oh, they bring in new artists and they do new shows. And that sounds exciting. And I would like to see something new and exciting. And then boom, they saw that.
Right.
And so from that perspective, I think every day it's luck. It's what happens to your body chemistry when you walk into a room and you see something really special and phenomenal. Wicked just celebrated its 20th year on Broadway, which is insane, and God bless them. And they did not receive rave reviews, but what they did is they motivated people to go to this theater and experience something that people took very personally. They loved the music, they loved the spectacle. They always felt like they got their money's worth. Wicked is the perfect example. Lion King, those shows have run forever because the money that you put down and the experience that you got in return was worth its weight in gold.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that shows like that are going to continue to thrive, but there's no formula to a hit. You can cast the biggest star in the world to be in a show and it won't necessarily work. At the end of the day, though, I talked about we're making memories and we're trying to get consumers to get in a theater and experience something and maybe feel that alchemy, maybe feel that magic, maybe cry like I did when I saw all the tap shoes under the curtain.
Hmm.
But I do what I do and I love what I do every day. It's our job here at Table 7 to get more people to go out and experience art. And we also do like immersive experiences because I think if it's your job to go somewhere every day and get more people to experience joy, why wouldn't you do that? What a
Yeah.
great job we have. That's what we get to do every day.
Yes. On that note, I know we only have a few minutes left, but Jean is asking, what are some of your favorite low-cost ways to create excitement around an event?
Um, Low cost ways, gosh, this is hard. Because word of mouth is one thing. We are about to ask people to stand outside a theater during previews and say, here, scan here and immediately post on social. This is such a simple thing, but it's something that I think is a brilliant idea because you may leave the theater and think, oh yeah, I should post about this later. Or maybe you posted your playbill on the way in, but maybe paying somebody $100 to stand outside your Broadway show and say, hey, did you enjoy it? Great. Scan here and please post. Please put a comment. Please go to Show Score and put a review, like whatever that is. That human contact, which is somewhat inexpensive, I think is completely worth it.
Hmm.
I also, so encouraging word of mouth in a very aggressive way, but it's something that can be done for not a lot of money. So that's my number one thing. And then I hate to say it, but flyers and postcards, as silly as that is, literally sending out something that people can pick up and they can put on their fridge, or they can hand off to a friend, or some physical piece. I still find those to be effective. I may find a flyer in my coat pocket and think, oh, well, really want to see Waitress, the film, when it comes out. That was the latest thing I think I had in my coat pocket. It was a
Hmm.
Waitress, brochure from back when Sarah was in it. And I was like, oh gosh, I want to see the movie now.
Yeah.
So those little physical reminders never hurt. Getting people to post on social, or it's not incredibly expensive. And then I think, honestly, internal emails, really think about the cadence of your email list. But if you can be clever, like we're trying so hard to be with La Mirada, to say, okay, we're only going to send out one email a week, but what is that message? Is it a really great video? Is it a really great offer? Is it something that's going to have somebody not unsubscribe, ideally, but
Right.
also what is the subject line that's going to get somebody to open it? And then what is their motivation to click on what's inside? That does not cost an organization a ton of money to send out an email, but being thoughtful about that email and being very specific. And I always say, do not give me more than 3 messages in an email. People try to fill newsletters with so much junk. No, 3 things. That's it. That's all my brain has
Hmm.
the attention span for. And I think that's a good thing to end on. It's like, it's not in these 6 ways to sell tickets. And by the way, there's an article that I wrote that outlines these, not so much Taylor Swift, but it's on Medium. You can follow me on LinkedIn. But I think the most important thing here is to say, we are appealing to a new generation of folks. We have to think like they think. We have to live where they live. Maybe you don't have the capacity to do a whole team on TikTok, but maybe can you post a TikTok a week? And if you can't do it, one of the other cheapest, smartest things we've ever done, we've paid a social media captain $150 a week just to post a couple of posts a week, because they are physically in the show. Many of them have following, many of them understand what to do. So if you're an organization with limited budget, can you find somebody in the cast of your next show? Can you identify someone who says, oh, I'm really good at this? And yeah, pay me a little bit extra and I'll give you a couple of pieces of content for you to post. And I always look at the people in your cast, or where have you, how many followers do they all have, and who is willing to be an influencer on their own project. If you give them cool content, if you feature them, if you do a live with them, be thoughtful about who you're asking.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I hope that's helpful.
definitely. We did have one more question come in if you have
Oh,
time to
sure.
answer. All right, Allison, we're going to end with yours. What is the best way to combat lukewarm or negative reviews?
Oh, pretend you never opened. Literally, and this is true story about Wicked. They had the opening, all the reviews came out, and the advice was keep going with the TV, keep going with the radio, keep selling the music and the visuals, and maybe put a quote in it, but don't be a big quote ad show. You don't need to be. Don't make people go looking as to why there's only 3 quotes. Keep people
Mm-hmm.
going into, oh my God, it's such a gorgeous spectacle. It's such an amazing thing. Sell what you think is going to motivate people. So we're working on an off-Broadway show, did not have the greatest reviews. Really what we're focusing on now is showing the show, showing the actors, taking audience reviews. So we go to ShowScore and we take the reviews that people, actual people, as opposed to critics, have had, and asking, hey, can we put this out into the world? So, and I love the phrase, critics and audiences alike are raving about. So if you don't have a critic, you can say audiences are raving. And those
Mm-hmm.
testimonials, be clever about them, right? For On Your Feet, we asked people to sing their favorite song. So even if they had liked or not liked the show, they were singing the songs, and it looked like a joyous time was being had by all. And these people actually did really love it. But the point
Mm-hmm.
is, deflect. You don't have to run quotes from critics. You can run quotes from anyone. You can show people having a good time. You can illustrate the strengths of your show without it affecting the success or failure of a critic review.
Definitely. I mean, think of how many weird movie trailers I see that say the summer's #1 show, and I think, by what metric? How are you allowed to say that? Somebody must have made it #1 on something. So that's a great
Yeah,
example of, and Wicked, 20 years. So obviously
20
that
years
worked.
that people have spoken. It didn't win the Tony. Doesn't really matter. Avenue Q did. Where's Avenue Q now? It's not there. Wicked is. So at the end of the day, people go to theater, people make memories, and people really decide what's a hit and what's not. The end.
Definitely. The end. Well, Vic, thank you again. I just dropped the link to your LinkedIn page for everyone. If you're interested in following, I highly recommend it. And I will be sending out via email the recording of this webinar to everybody that came. Thanks so much. And Vic, thank you. This was really fun for me. I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else did too.
Great. Thank you so much. Great seeing everyone. Bye.
All right. Bye.